Love you guys too. It is so good to be here, and we love this group. And we've been up here now several times, and we really do. I can tell you honestly, we really do look forward to coming up here and to spending time together.
And I look forward to hugging that baby.
He doesn't want to.
We're all waiting too. So.
I'd advise you changing shirts.
But I want to thank the Leaps for just their hospitality and organizing, bringing people in like this. So, and thank all of you for allowing us to. We feel welcomed by all of you. So thank you for that. I know that you guys, I think, have been looking at or focusing on the heart of God in your Sundays, and I want to continue that a little bit. But I want to focus on our spiritual eyesight. Okay? And I really believe that the more we see God act, the more we see God at work, the more we see God in and around us, and in our lives and in the lives of others, then the more we see the heart of God. Because God, I think, reveals himself in creation, yes, but I think also he reveals himself in his acts and in his workings. And I think so often, I know, maybe you too can relate to this, I think I miss so much of what God is doing in and around me, but he's still working. But I miss it. I don't focus on it. I don't look for it. And as a result, I think I miss seeing the heart of God on display in my life, in my marriage, in the lives of others. So that's what I thought we'd focus on today, if that's cool with you guys.
That's good.
So spiritual eyesight. Let me just give you a little facts here first. Did you know that the human eye can distinguish between over 1 million different colors? That's pretty impressive. The human eye can detect light as dim as a single photon. Now, I don't know what a photon is. It must be really small. But a single one. The human eye can change its focus up to 50 times per second. Wow. And a lot of you are saying, I didn't get a pair of these. The human eye also has a blind spot. The blind spot is located just to the right or just to the left of center. And with both eyes open, our blind spots aren't perceived because our sight overlaps with each other. But let's do a little experiment and see if we can't find the blind spot. And maybe you've done this before. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take both hands. I want you to put thumbs together just like this out in front of you. Okay? Now, I want you to close your left eye. With your right eye, focus on your left thumb. And now slowly move your right hand out, away, just a little bit. And your thumb will disappear. Your right thumb will disappear as you move it slowly away from center. Right? That's your blind spot. Okay, now switch eyes. Okay, now close your right eye. With your left eye, focus on your right thumb. And just pull your left thumb away slowly, and it disappears just off center, right? That is your blind spot. The blind spots, I should say, that we have. And our sight is important, right? But how much more important our spiritual sight and the ability to see God, and to see God work, and to see God act. So we're going to look at a scripture today, a story, actually in the Old Testament. If you would open your Bibles to 2 Kings, chapter 6. And it's a familiar story. We're going to look at, Elisha traps the blind Aramean. And this is really, as far as I can tell, it's the only Old Testament story of someone being healed of blindness, as far as I know. And so let's read the story, and then we're going to come back and look at some different aspects of it. It says in verse 8, 2 Kings 6, verse 8, and I should get my glasses on. so I can see clearer.
Sounds like you got a big blind spot.
I got a big blind spot. Now the king of Aram was at war with Israel. After conferring with his officers, he said, I will set up my camp in such and such a place. The man of God sent word to the king of Israel. Beware of passing that place because the Arameans are going down there. So the king of Israel checked on the place indicated by the man of God. Time and again, Elisha warned the king so that he was on his guard in such places. This enraged the king of Aram. He summoned his officers and demanded of them, will you not tell me which of us is on the side of the king of Israel? None of us, my lord the king, said one of the officers, but Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the very words you speak in your bedroom. Go, find out where he is, the king ordered, so I can send men and capture him. The report came back, he is in Dothan. Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and they surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. Oh, my Lord, what shall we do? The servant asked. Don't be afraid, the prophet answered. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And Elisha prayed, O Lord, open his eyes so that he may see. Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, strike these people with blindness. So he struck them with blindness as Elijah had asked. Elisha told them, this is not the road. I love this Jedi mind trick he pulls on right here. This is not the road, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you are looking for. And he led them to Samaria, which is about a 3-hour trek. After they entered the city, Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men so that they can see. Then the Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and there they were inside Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he asked Elisha, shall I kill them, my father? Shall I kill them? Do not kill them, he answered. Would you kill men you have captured with your own sword or bow? Set food and water before them, so that they may eat and drink, and then go back to their master. So he prepared a great feast for them. And after they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away, and they returned to their master. So the bands from around stopped raiding Israel's territory. Well, what's an amazing story. There's sight, and there's blindness, there's sight again. But what we want to focus on here is more of the spiritual sight and how this can relate to us. And so I want to look at two different types of people here, two different people where both had some spiritual sight problems. One is, we'll say the blindness of the believer and the blindness of the unbeliever. So the blindness of the believer, if you look back in verse 15 through 17 there, 15 through 17, the servant of the man of God. And so Elisha has this servant, this helper, this man of God. So he had faith. He was able, he was with Elijah. Maybe he was Elijah's heir apparent. He was the next one in line to become the prophet of God. We don't know. But we know that he probably was a man of faith, a man who believed in God, a man who saw Elisha do some amazing things. And he says, when the servant of the man of God got up early and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city, and oh my Lord, what shall we do? The servant asked. Like any of us, he gets up, goes outside, and what does he see? The enemy. Not just one or two, the entire city is surrounded. Hundreds, thousands, horses and chariots. Put yourself in his shoes for a second. What would you be thinking and feeling if you saw that?
We're dead.
We're dead. Yeah. Okay, we're dead, we're cooked. What else?
asking why I've never seen this before. Like, what is it in me that prevents me from seeing this?
Okay, but right now he's just looking at the armies of
The
the
end.
enemy.
Oh, the enemy. Oh,
Yeah.
Not the chariots of fire.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right now, if you're looking at the armies,
I'd be shaking.
I'd be shaken. What else?
Where's God in this? It's like, this guy's supposed to be the man of God, and here we are surrounded and all good times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, I can relate because sometimes it's so easy for me to look at things without hope or without faith. It's so easy for me I can even look at the church in Worcester, let's say, and I can see more of the problems and the obstacles and the failures and the whatever else than I can God working. And I think without spiritual sight, all we see is the obstacles, and all we see is the problems, the failures. And so Elisha prays, and he prays for his spiritual sight. Look what he says here. Don't be afraid, the prophet answered. Those who are with us are more than those who were with them. So right away you get, boy, how's Elisha taking this? He's chill, right? It's like, why are you freaking out? He's pretty chill. And so he prays, oh, Lord, open his eyes so that he may see. Well, he already can see. He sees all the chariots of fire and the enemy, not the fire, but the enemies. So he can see. So Elisha's praying for a spiritual sight. Open his eyes so that he may see. The Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and he saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. Okay, now let me ask you this. Now, you're that servant, and you see that. What are you thinking and feeling now?
You got hope, certainly.
Hope. What else?
Courage.
Courage. Yeah.
Usually in the movies they have like kind of dramatic music when that.
So you're also hearing dramatic music?
A lot of French horns. And,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think of the confidence you would have all of a sudden. And
Right.
I'm not freaking out about this. I don't need to. We've got this. You would feel so secure, so safe, so taken care of if you could see all of that around you. How many of us need to pray the same prayer? God, open my eyes so that I may see you. I may see what's going on spiritually around me that I would otherwise miss. I need to pray that prayer. Open my eyes, heal my spiritual blindness if I have any. Let me see you at work. Jesus says in John 5:17, my Father is at work to this very day, and I too am working. How many of you believe that? Do you think Jesus is telling the truth?
Yeah.
So that means God is working in Jesus to this very day, right now, this morning. He's working. Do you see it? I love Psalm 66:5. Come and see what God has done, how awesome his works in man's behalf. The psalmist is almost like wanting to brag on God. Come follow me, come and see, look at what God has done. Oh, how awesome are his works in our behalf. And so God is working to this very day. How awesome are his works, and how often we miss them, and we don't see them. And so maybe, again, the idea of, you need to, God, help my spiritual sight to see you better, to see you clearer, to see you more. Open my eyes, God. Think of just close your eyes and imagine you're the servant and you see chariots and horses of fire all around you. What would that look like? I don't know about you, but I'd love to see that. This is a Psalm 34:7. An angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him. God, if you could open our eyes and we could see right now what's going on around this room, outside this building right now. Are there horses and chariots of fire? What's going on around us right now? I love this word, the angel of the Lord encamps. Not the angel of the Lord visits every so often. He encamps. He sets up camp around those who fear God. You have angels encamped around you if you fear God. God, I'd love to see that. But even if I don't see it, I believe that it's there.
What was it? Psalm what?
Psalm 37:4.
Oh, sorry.
Or I'm sorry, 34:7.
I reversed it. Got it, thanks.
And so, one, I think we need to pray, God, open my eyes to help me see what you are already doing. Right? Open my eyes to help me see what the works you are already accomplishing. God, open my eyes to see not only in my life or in my marriage or in my family, but in the church or in everywhere else. God, help me to see you clearer. Because if I do, then I'm going to see your heart more. And you might say, well, yeah, okay, that's a great Old Testament thing, but what about for us? Look at, just keep your finger here. Return to Ephesians chapter 1 real quickly. In Ephesians chapter 1, Paul is writing to Christians, disciples in Ephesus, and notice what he says in verse 18 of chapter 1. I pray also that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in the saints, and his incomparably great power for us who believe. And that power is like the working of his mighty strength, which he exerted in Christ when he raised him from the dead and seated him at the right hand of the heavenly realm. Paul, all of a sudden, in writing this letter, busts out in prayer. He says, God, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened. He's praying for their spiritual eyesight here in the New Testament. I love this version. Here's a different version of it. He says, that your hearts will be flooded with light so that you can understand the confident hope he has given to those he has called. In other words, Paul's prayer here was that they would have a clearer picture, that the eyes of their heart, that they would have a greater understanding and visualization of what it meant to have fellowship with God. I pray that they would better understand what they have in you and with you. And he's praying for the eyes of their heart, that they would see. And I think, boy, again, I need to pray that prayer so much more. I think Job even experienced this. Job, 38 through 42, is God questioning Job. All right, let's just brace yourself, and let me just ask you a few questions. 3 chapters later, Job responds this way: my ears have heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. He was questioned by God for 3 chapters, and all of a sudden he's like, now I see. He saw God clearer. And as a result, it radically changed his life. It radically changed his view of God. And so I think, again, to see God is to see his heart, to see his actions revealed. I think Old Testament, New Testament, and today, God is still at work. We can talk about the heart of God, and we can know the heart of God here, but I think if we see the heart of God at work, how it radically would change our lives. That we would go, God is working all around me. And we would be forever changed, like Job there when he's 42:5 when he says that. So, let's go back to our story here. And let's keep reading and looking at it. So that's the blindness of the believer. Let's talk about the blindness of unbelievers. in verses 18 through 20. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, strike them with blindness. So they were struck with blindness. Elisha said, "Oh, this is not the man, or this is not the city. Let me bring you to him." It's easy to lead the blind. Satan does it all the time. It's a wide road. It leads to destruction, he says. And so they go straight into Samaria. Now, pretend, you're one of those soldiers, and you've been struck with blindness, 3-hour trek into Samaria, and now your eyes are open. What are you thinking when you look around and you realize, we're in the enemy's camp here? What are you thinking or feeling?
No hope.
No hope. Okay.
We're dead.
We're dead. Again, we're dead. We're cooked.
Person you're exit.
Yeah. Exactly. And then they realize, I've been had. That was Elijah. And now we're in the enemy's camp. And so prayer opens eyes. Elijah prayed for his servant. Elisha prays for them. Prayer opens the eyes of the spiritually blind. But think about it today. What opens the eyes of unbelievers? Maybe here's a better question. What opened your eyes to God? Miracles. Okay. What else opened? What opened your eyes to God?
Scriptures.
Scriptures.
Seeing faithful doubt, seeing the scriptures of doubt.
Okay.
Loss.
Say that again.
Loss.
Okay. Open your eyes to seeing God. Okay.
Seeing the hearts of other believers, relationships.
Okay. Seeing the hearts of other believers. Yeah.
Changing someone's life that you've been praying for. Yeah.
Change in someone else's life. Because that was God working.
Transformation in your own life.
Transformation in your own life.
Seeing the transformation.
Yeah. Boy, I've tried and I haven't changed at all. All of a sudden, God comes in. And for me, I remember God has put people in my life in June, July. It'll be 34 years ago for me. And God put somebody in my life and invited me to a Bible talk. And I said no and walked away. And we were walking into the same restaurant, so he came in right with me. And we kept talking. I finally said, okay, I'll come. And I was like blown away by the Bible talk. And then he said, you want to sit down and study the Bible? I said, well, all right. We sat down and studied the Bible right there at Bible talk. We did the discipleship study. And my eyes started to get open. And then we went through the rest of other studies, and I still remember the first time going through studying on what the cross meant, what happened to Jesus, and weeping in front of these men that I had just met 6 weeks ago, and just weeping because I'd never seen it before. And when you see God's love, when you see the scriptures come to life, I grew up in church and I never saw them come to life. But when you see it and when you experience it, you are so moved that you say, I'll give you the rest of my life. I will follow you for the rest of my life. That's pretty powerful. That's pretty radical. And I would imagine you have a similar kind of story to some degree or another. And so you've experienced, I think, a lot of what these soldiers experienced. You look at this story, and I think there's so many overtones, if you want to say, of Jesus and the gospel message in this story. I like it. Can you imagine the king? The king of Israel saw them and asked Elisha, shall we kill them? Can I kill them? And Elisha says, no. And I'll just read you this quote. The ultimate victory is not to destroy your enemies, but to win them over. That's the ultimate victory. not to destroy your enemies, but to win them over. And I just, for my own thoughts, I wrote down, isn't that what God did for me, for you? He could have, and did rightly so, to destroy us for our sin. But does he?
Can you read it one more time?
The ultimate victory is not to destroy your enemies, but to win them over. And I think that's what God does with each one of us. He wins us over. And I think, again, there's so many overtones of Jesus here with regards to the gospel, with regards to what we've received. We're like those soldiers. Instead of, I wrote this down too. They thought the solution to their problems, the Arameans, was to capture and destroy God's man. But instead, what they discovered was a blessing when they were captured by God's man. We have been captured by God. When somebody opened the Bible with us, and studied with us, and lived out what Christianity is, we were so captured, we were so enamored, our hearts of stone melted, and we were like, I'll follow you, I will give you my life, I will live to glorify you. We saw God for the first time and we were so moved. And so, being captured by God truly sets us free. Instead of judgment, we receive a feast of grace and mercy and love. Again, put yourself in their shoes. Here they are in the enemy's camp, their eyes have just been opened. Uh-oh. And instead of killing us, which is probably what they would have done to their end, no, don't kill them. Feed them. Set a feast before them and then let them go. That's not how you treat enemies. We're in war here, and you want to feed them and put a feast before them and then say, go home, go back to your master? That's exactly what happened. Okay, put yourself in their shoes. You're one of those soldiers, and that's just happening to you right now. What would you be feeling? Thank you.
Might not trust food.
Yeah.
Watch somebody else eat it first.
Yeah.
What else?
You don't want to hurt the person who just did that to you.
Okay, why not?
Because, instead of hurting you, they took care of you. So it's hard to feel vengeful when that happens.
I think it appeals to that noble piece of conscience that God's given us. And in that moment when you think, I literally just got my life back.
Yeah.
I think in most people, that switch would flip. You think, I want to follow you. Not this. Like, you just earned massive trust with me.
Yeah.
And I would trust more a leader with that integrity than what I've been doing. Because it's not natural to kill people with. It's not natural. So I feel like that would be a switch.
Totally. I think how humbling it would be. You're treating me this way, I wouldn't have treated you this way. Kind of humbling. And so I think the same way they get this feast set before them, they eat, and then they get set free. And it was so moving. So the bands from Iran stopped raiding Israel's territory.
But also they were blinded. So they knew that there was a power greater than both sides. They're like, wait a minute, we've been blinded, now we've been able to see. So I wouldn't even mess with someone after he did that. Do you know what I'm saying? They realized they were dealing with a bigger power than all.
Yeah.
And listen to Elisha too, because he had blinded all them and brought them in. So Elisha said, "I'm not killing them." Okay,
Right.
Sure, we trust you, but okay.
And we're sort of left with, we don't know when they go back to their master and they say, we're not attacking them anymore. Look at how they treated us. That's a whole different story. So Think about what melts hearts, what moves people to follow Jesus, to give up their lives. God has set before you and I a feast of grace and a feast of mercy and a feast. He has lavished us with his love, 1 John. And so, that idea of we, in a sense, we've been treated just like these guys. Even though, Romans 5 says, even though when we were God's enemies, Christ died for us. God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So you see so much foreshadowing of what God is going to do for each one of us. I think here in this story. And it all goes back to spiritual sight. If I can just see God a little more, move, act in my life and others, why don't I get to see his heart more? Because he reveals his heart through his actions. His words, but his actions. We're going to close out here just with Sid maybe sharing a little bit about my dad, who I think many of you have told the story about. How he was converted 2 years ago.
Yeah, so just a little update or refresher, if you weren't here. Tom's dad's name is Dave, and 2 years ago, at the beginning of the year, Dave had a friend who he was sharing with about the Bible, and he said, my friend wants to learn about Jesus, and I kind of told her what I know, and I don't know where else to go with her, so don't you do that Bible study type of thing with people? So we ended up studying the Bible over the phone with Dave and his friend Oli, who was 97 at the time.
He was 89, she was 98.
And so they studied the Bible, so encouraging, and I'll just make that part brief. Studied the Bible for a few months, and then Tom and I flew out to Oregon and baptized Dave and Oli. And so encouraging, and for the past couple of years we've been doing like continued Bible studies over the phone with them every week. And long story short, Oli, whose buddy is Jesus, that's how she would refer to him now, her newfound faith in Jesus, she passed away in January. So lived a wonderful life, totally healthy, but then just it's time to go, and she passed away just a couple of months ago. And it's so amazing to hear Dave in this process. One thing he shared after the fact, you know, him getting to help Oli, see Oli come to Christ, and the way that she transformed even in the 2 years, he said, this has been a highlight of my life.
Wow.
And I'm like, when a now 90-year-old says,
90.
this has been a highlight of my life, when they say that, you go, you've lived a lot of life, right? You've seen a lot of things, and for helping this woman and seeing her come to faith, seeing her eyes being open to God and Jesus, and that for him to say this is a highlight of my life. It helped. It's like this is what his eyes have been open to. It's so encouraging. Two, it reminds me of the important things in life, right? What, just being able to see God move in my life and being able to see him move in other people's lives, or use me or use you in other people's lives, like that's the goal. Like those are the important nuggets out of life. Those will be the things that are our highlights, right? My highlights. And so him just sharing that little sentence has been, gives food for thought as to what is it all about? What is it, in life that where we get to see God moving, and it's those spiritual impacts that really make a difference, or those are the eternal things, right, that last forever. So anyways, there's Dave's story is continued. Oli has finished the race, and she's where we want to be.
Yeah, to see God move and to frame it in a way that has been one of the highlights of my life.
Very cool.
And again, I pray that our time together just God, open our eyes so that we can see you clearer. Why? Because that way we will see your heart on display. That's what we're going for. So, thanks so much for letting us be here and sharing that with you.
Thank you.
So,